Hello and welcome to the Consumer Friend podcast. In this pod, we are going to look at product safety and why it is so important. We are doing this in time for the lead up to Halloween, so we're going to be looking at toy safety more specifically, and obviously Christmas is just around the corner as well. If this is your first listen, please go back to our other podcasts. We've got 8 now, I think it is, on consumer rights, consumer vulnerability, and how to start your home efficiency journey. As ever, the www.consumerfriend.org.uk website is a great tool for people to go and understand their rights when buying goods and services. More and more stuff is added over time to help you get the best deal for you. It's free, professional, easy to understand advice. So with me today is my good friend Louise. Hi Lou, how are you doing today?
Hi Ad, I'm good, thank you very much. Bit tired, but I think that's just being an adult, isn't it?
That is exactly what being an adult is. Spend your
being
life
grown
tired.
Up, just different levels of tired all of the time.
Great. And talking us through product safety and why we could all probably do with being a bit more knowledgeable on this subject is Adrian Simpson from the British Retail Consortium. Hello, Adrian. How are you?
Hi, Adam. I'm very well, thanks. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
No problem at all. I think kind of my first question is, what is a consortium? I see this name bandied around when someone's trying to buy a football club mainly, but I don't really understand what it means. Is it just like a group of people, like we refer to animals, like a gaggle or a flock?
Well, I've been asked many questions in my career, but I don't think I've ever been asked this one. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a group of organisations or people who have some sort of common interest and want to bring about, I suppose, positive change for that particular group. Yeah, I tend to think of it in football terms as well. When you hear of buying consortiums after a club, but I can assure you the BRC doesn't have any ambitions to buy any football clubs just yet.
Good to know. Good to know. Can you give us a bit of an idea of what the BRC does?
Yeah, so the BRC is the trade association for larger retailers in Britain. We cover all the high street retailers, more or less. There are a few who aren't members, but we've got supermarkets as members. We've got online marketplaces as members. And I think our membership covers around 70 to 80% of all UK retail. And I think our members employ something like 1 out of every 9 adults in the UK. So we've got some really, really big name, household name members, and our sort of size of membership is absolutely huge.
1 out of every 9. That's a massive.
I think it's like that. Yeah, I think when you put sort of retail together, it's a very, very large part of our economy. Contributes a lot of things like employment, provides a lot of jobs, and it's not just on the shop floor. There's obviously lots of like back office jobs as well, lots of warehousing jobs, lots of compliance and regulatory jobs, which are sort of the people I tend to deal with in my community within the BRC.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on today. You said thank you to us for coming on today. You might want to hold off on the thanks.
I'll see how I feel at the end.
Definitely see how you feel at the end.
That's all right. I think also to add what I do within the BRC. So within the BRC, I manage the buying community. So the buying community aims to help retailers sell safe and compliant non-food products. So quite a niche focus, but we're a large and growing community. It's good to see that retailers think very, very highly of product safety and are willing to put quite a bit of resource towards making sure their products don't harm consumers, and that the products that they do supply sort of surprise and delight the people that buy them. It's quite a challenging time in retail at the moment. You've probably seen how the high street is suffering with lower footfalls. Consumers are obviously turning things like online spending, which we do cover as well. And there are all sorts of things around supply chains and the price of products, especially food, but non-food products as well, increasing what feels like a daily rate. Every time I sort of go into a shop now, you sort of think this is cheaper yesterday, last week, last month.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Everything's getting a lot more expensive. So when we look at product safety, I kind of always come back to that Claudia Winkleman story that we saw where she spoke about her daughter Matilda, who Claudia Winkleman went into a supermarket. She bought a witch's costume for £5, I think it was. Matilda then brushed up against a candle, and then the costume caught on fire. And it was a horrific story, really quite nasty. And there's a small statistic here that 94 people in England were admitted to hospital as a result of their clothing either igniting or melting. of which 21 were children under 18. So I think that's kind of a story that brings product safety to the forefront of people's minds, and the fact that a celebrity was kind of promoting that story, really, really good to get it out there. So what should we be looking at when we're talking about product safety?
Yeah, we all remember that tragic story involving Claudia Winkleman's daughter. So one of the things we did at the BRC was actually we came together to put together a code of practice that goes over and above the legal requirements for children's dress-up costumes. As you probably know, within sort of product safety and regulations, sometimes regulations can take a while to catch up. There's a whole legislative process that the law has to go through. Sometimes it takes a while for standards to be developed, to get the right people around the table to say this is somewhere we want to improve. So what we did at the consortium is we actually brought a lot of retailers together. We also brought manufacturers, distributors, charities together to actually write our own sort of code of practice on flammability. So it was first released in 2015, and we did 3 codes of practice at the time. So there's one, I believe, on the actual safety testing methods. There's one on labelling and one on just regulations. So we actually worked together this year to update it. And there's some things that we've kept in. So, for example, we've kept a stringent requirement around maximum burn rate of 10 millimeters per second, which is way over and above the labelling and legal requirements.
Sorry, just to stop. So that product won't burn more than 10 millimeters per second. So if it's a fabric, it's got to be tested to not burn at a rate above that.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So it's a maximum burn rate of 10 millimeters per second, which is over and above the legal requirements. We've also updated labelling requirements for retailers. And we've also brought together like best practice examples, and that guide is free and available for anyone to read. And we do know that retailers are very positive about this code of practice, and most, if not all, major retailers have adopted this code of practice. So that's their way of coming together to try and do some good for the industry and for all consumers. Most importantly, we don't want products to injure children. We want them to be as safe as they possibly can be. We know that these costumes are very, very popular now. It seems that they're everywhere. They back when I was a child, you were quite lucky if you wore a mask. Nowadays you have to sort of go full on and sort of really go into sort of cosplay levels of.
You'd be painting a cardboard box.
Yeah,
over your head.
That was about as far as it went. Now it seems to me you've got to sort of not just costumes, but there are props.
I think it was a pillowcase. I think whatever it was a pillowcase. So like if you were like Halloween, you were a pillowcase because it's a ghost. If it was like you were a shepherd, it was a tea towel or a pillowcase on your head. like the 80s, it was like whatever. You never bought a costume. Your mum fashioned something out of like a potato sack or a pillowcase at home. So there's no safety. There wasn't. Well, there probably was safety issues around it, but we didn't know about them.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a whole industry in its own, and it just is getting. We can see it getting bigger and bigger every year.
There are rules that govern manufacturers in terms of what they've got to comply with when they're making their products.
Correct, yeah. So things like the toy safety regulations are in place that tell manufacturers what the essential safety requirements are for these products, which are well established, and we've had the toy safety regulations in place, I believe, since about 1987, and they are updated frequently. It is a high-profile area, as you can imagine, toys, because the toys are used by vulnerable children. Are vulnerable and require extra protection when it comes to the things that they use. So the regulations have been there. They've been updated regularly. They continue to be updated. But of course, now that we've left the European Union, we can now make our own rules and regulations around not just toy safety, but any kind of safety ones. And that's an area that is concerning for retailers, because we're looking at going, well, if Europe changes things and GB hasn't caught up, or Great Britain wants to go ahead and do its own rules and regulations, does this mean that products that British consumers buy will be less safe than they are in Europe, or they might be safer than they do? So this is all things we're having to think about in these particularly difficult, challenging political times that we're living. And this is set amongst supply chain issues and cost of living increases.
I think if we bring, so at the minute we're just pulling together, aren't we, the material to go on the website around sort of buying safe products and what to look out for and toy safety. Adam's just informed me it's too long. Which means he's telling me that I'm talking too much, which is not a shock to anybody. However, so we're trying to make it clear for consumers. So we're trying to make it relevant as well. So from a consumer perspective, if we're looking at some of the sort of stark statistics that are coming out in relation to trading standards, that's something like 4.2 million unsafe items were seized. Right. So this is you're likely to buy something that's unsafe, aren't you, as a consumer? So if I'm just an average consumer and I have got children, I've got a 9 and a 12-year-old, but say they were slightly younger, why do I care about this, Adrian? Why do I care?
Well, most importantly, of course, you don't want your children to become injured, first of all, and some products might be unsafe in a non-visible way. By that I mean things like chemicals. So there are stringent rules and regulations around what sort of chemicals can be in products, but also specifically within toys as well. So product safety rules and regulations are hugely important, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that you won't see. So, for example, manufacturers are required to hold detailed test records or compliance records, should I say, to show that products do comply with safety requirements. And also things like labelling is important. So if a product does hopefully it won't, but in case it does injure you, know who to go to actually get somewhere with it as well. So these are all rules and regulations that developed over time. So they're hugely important. And manufacturer retailers put tremendous amounts of resources into complying with the law, but say in some cases going over and above the requirements of the law. So not just saying, this complies with the law. Some of them say are following things like the codes of practice or putting extra labelling on, or in some cases doing education and advice pieces with consumers. So, for example, we're seeing some retailers who are working close. Some retailers have like nursery departments, for example, and they're working with new parents to bring to their attention things like button battery safety.
What do you mean by button? So button battery. Explain what the problem is with. So with button batteries, what are the problems with those?
So button batteries will no doubt be all over your homes. I think of them in things like car keys and remotes as well. So they are everywhere. If you think they're not in your house, they will be somewhere, I'm sure. These are very small batteries that children can easily swallow, which leads to all sorts of really unpleasant medical problems happening. Like we see them, they can actually sort of burn through skin.
Well, the batteries can burn through skin?
Yes, there are some. If you look online on YouTube, there are some videos that people have put where they put a button battery on. I think it's some meat, and it shows it actually sort of fizzing through to the other side. So you can only imagine what that's going to do to a child's delicate body. So what we're trying to say to parents is be aware of where these are in your house. Don't leave them lying around. And we've been doing some work with the Office of Product Safety and Standards and with manufacturers and with retailers and with charities to try and raise awareness of this. And we're promoting like a code of practice that's been written that goes over and above the requirements of safety. It says, for example, to get button batteries out, you require 2 steps, two physical actions to get them out. So you've got to push something and then pull something, for example. They're not just like a little flat. And this is not toys have their own detailed regulations around this, but there are a lot of things like car keys, for example, haven't quite caught up to that. So it's really important, parents, really important that you're aware of where these are. Keep them out of the reach of kids, and don't just leave them lying around and in kitchen drawers and things like that. Get them well out of the way, out of sight and out of mind of kids, because they will play with them. They'll pick them up.
The latest information that's coming out talks about the fact that 4 million counterfeit products have been seized by trading standards. Right, and then they're looking at the fact that I'm just looking at my stats here on this. So and then the 4.2 million unsafe, non-compliant products have been removed from the marketplace. Right, we're trading standards as a profession are literally just skirting around the edges of this. There's got to be a lot more on the marketplace that we don't know about. Now, from a consumer perspective, now counterfeit goods could potentially be unsafe as well, so you've got a double whammy. Now, and when I mean counterfeit, I mean fake. So fake goods. So I've bought those before on an online selling platform. I was having situational vulnerability at the time. Just to caveat that with that situation, I was particularly stressed, and I bought toys for my daughter. And I bought her, those little LOL dolls, those little plastic LOL dolls.
Yes.
I bought those, which on reflection, it was a too good to be true offer because they were much cheaper than they should have been, and I should have clocked that at the time. But again, situational vulnerability doesn't allow you to do that. Bought them, got them because I was panicking about Christmas. And when she opened them, firstly, I mean, she's 12 now, she was 8 at the time, but when she opened them, what she actually said was, Mum, these are fake. I've watched those videos about identifying fake and unsafe goods that you told me to watch. And then she went, isn't this what you do for your job? Which was amazing to be completely told off by your child. However, they were counterfeit because obviously there was a brand issue there in the fact they were saying they were LOL when they weren't. And they were unsafe because I had loads of little bits that fell off all of the time. So those things could have been swallowed by children. So it's for consumers, it's easy to buy things and think on an online selling platform, thinking that someone's checked them, that you're not going to get something that's unsafe in those spaces, and for consumers to buy those things. So what do we do if we do buy something that's unsafe or counterfeit? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are huge. I think that 4.2 million is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm sure there are many more non-compliant products. I think one of the issues is that consumers assume that I bought it from a shop, whether that's an online platform, whether that's even a high street retailer, whether that's a market stall, whether that's an online auction. Therefore, it must be safe, legal, not counterfeit. And as we know from all of our work in trading standards with this profession for a long time, that simply isn't the case. I think if consumers do end up with what they believe is a counterfeit or an unsafe good, it's first of all, of course, contact the seller of the goods. What we find is that certainly the larger retailers don't want these counterfeit and unsafe goods being sold on their platforms or through their stores, so they'll immediately remove them. Hopefully, find out why that's occurred, and most importantly, not to happen again. Because of course, the problem isn't just the small parts, which can obviously be choked and ingested, like in that specific case you mentioned, but also the fact that these products could contain all sorts of chemicals. I've got a 1-year-old daughter. She's just at the stage now where her feedback with the world is through chewing and sucking everything. So she came across this. She do it, and who knows what chemicals are in that product as well. So yeah, we all have to sort of be safe and be vigilant. And I do and I know from experience that retailers don't want their brands associated with unsafe and counterfeit goods, so that they will take very stringent action to do it. And of course, if that doesn't work, or if consumers want to, contact trading standards, of course, who have a duty to investigate these kind of complaints as well, and no doubt will add it to their quite significant workload. But I do know that it is a priority area for many trading standard services as well.
There's another one around perfumes and aftershaves as well. A lot of counterfeit, fake perfumes and aftershaves pretending to be the genuine thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So counterfeit perfumes and cosmetics, as a general, continue to be an area that's rife with counterfeit products. Because of course these are expensive premium items. We're seeing large price increases, particularly around sort of cosmetics and these kind of luxury items. So it's no surprise that criminals are taking advantage of that. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, who knows what's in them? Who knows you're putting these things on your skin. This
is like cosmetics, isn't it? There's the separate rules around cosmetics, because, again, things like we've historically seen issues around teeth whitening, around skin lightening creams, all of these things that can cause, serious problems for consumers. But in this space as well, so when we're talking about the cost of living crisis, I know, Adam, I'm going to get fined again for talking about the cost of living crisis. Right, so we've got the cost of living crisis. People are looking for a better deal. So some people are choosing between eating and heating. So actually, when you're talking about, people are wanting to get a good deal in things and are probably looking for cheaper items in some cases. But there is, and not, whilst we've talked a lot about the manufacturers and we've talked about the retailers, there's a responsibility for consumers to check who they're buying from and what they're actually buying, and that's one of the things, isn't it? So if you need to look at who you're buying things from, where is it coming from? What do the reviews say? We also know there are an issue around fake reviews as well. But actually, is this item suitable for your child? And inspecting that item and reading the instructions as well, because a lot of the time we do sometimes get safety complaints around the fact that people haven't actually used the item correctly or looked at the instructions. So it's important as well that consumers take their responsibility in this space.
I think one thing to mention, is that consumers need to be aware if it's too good to be true, it probably is. I mean, there are still deals out there to be had on many products, but we're seeing less and less of them. If something is significantly cheaper than you'd expect, you might need to ask why. You've got to think: is it because the product's counterfeit? It's unsafe. Will you be able to contact the trader if things go wrong? So if you do find that it falls apart, it causes an injury or a problem, will the retailer or trader still be there to make the complaint? But I think also, as you say, consumers do need to have a look and consider the product they're buying. Is it suitable for the child? Is there any sort of choking hazards or any problems? These products are tested to quite a large extent, and we can tell you that manufacturers do put an incredible amount of time, effort, and money into making sure these products surprise and delight their customers and don't cause them any injuries.
I think we're a nation of people that are lapping up the cheap plastic tat that is potentially coming over from, dare I say it, China, and I think there's a real problem there that like you say, that consumers aren't necessarily paying attention to the safety aspect and just kind of caring about the price.
One thing I think we're seeing, I think consumers are getting increasingly price over quality driven. This is because obviously all the products we're buying have gone up by so big margins. So we're hearing 11% in thinking food and about 3% in non-food. And then there's just things like delivery costs are increasing, supply chain costs are increasing. So things are going up all across. I don't think those percentages tell the whole story, if I'm honest. So we're seeing that consumers are increasingly looking for the price. The cheapest product. Whether or not that actually delivers, it isn't always that. And I think we're going to see that in the run up to Christmas, where this is really going to be at the forefront of customers' minds, where consumers were spending £200 last year, they might go to 100, and they're going to get the most they can and squeeze every penny out of that £100. So I personally feel you're going to see an increase in more unsafe goods from the market. I think consumers are not just looking at traditional retailers; they're looking at sort of peer-to-peer purchasing now. By that I mean buying from other consumers who are then getting those products from questionable sources.
And social media selling, like we've talked about. I mean, that's again back to that consumer responsibility. Slightly off track in this. I read some stories this morning around because ladders are one of the things that cause a lot of safety issues, aren't they? Like if you talk about general product safety, but actually a lot that's about consumer misuse. How people use things. The ladder's not long enough, so they use their van as an additional part of the ladder to go up and get like a live cable down. Or there's a story, which isn't funny, but it is. He uses his wheelie bin. He put his ladder on the wheelie bin on the lid to ensure that he had the extra height to get up. So we've got so we've got to make sure that as consumers, if we're buying off like online platforms or social media or secondhand, actually that we do our responsible checks before we buy those goods, or give them to our kids or whatever the product is.
We've been seeing some really shocking things on social media around product safety. For example, we've seen a Harry Potter wand that has some almost some pyrotechnics at the end of it. So you sort of press a button and it literally almost sort of creates a mini explosion. Of course, absolutely. It's on TikTok. If you look it up. So there's a product that's being openly marketed and available for people to look at. We're also seeing areas where consumers are being sort of shown how to like homebrew their own products. So for things like disposable barbecues, you might remember that over the summer. we had a big issue where a lot of retailers were voluntarily banning the sale of disposable barbecue. So we were seeing that consumers were able to get a bit of tin foil and some charcoal and make their own disposable barbecue, which brings its own issue. So I think one area we're going to be seeing is where consumers are looking to social media to get inspiration on how to almost a bit make, do and mend their own
life hacks, Adrian. Life hacks.
Yeah, life hacks. See, I'm not as cool and trendy as you, Lou. I don't know all these.
The fact that's the second time we've used the word trendy today denotes to me that we are not down with the kids.
I think so. I think my 13-year-old son is going to listen to this and cringe, I'm sure.
No, not at all.
Right, so Adrian, if you had one key takeaway for consumers today, for people, what would that be in relation to this subject?
Just because something is on sale doesn't necessarily mean it's safe. Do have a think about the retailer you're buying from. Will they be there if there's a problem with the goods? If it causes you injury, if it falls apart, if it doesn't work as you'd expect it to do, will they still be there for you to make a complaint and for you to say, "Can I have my money back, please?"
The other thing I would just say for people, if people want more information on this, there's going to be some trained into information on the website. There's going to be some socials about this. If Floss, my daughter, will allow me loose on TikTok, which she doesn't. I thought the TikTok I did yesterday was funny, but she's only allowed me to share it in private mode.
Oh, it was
amazing, Adam. I'm still laughing about it. I'm so out of time. It was horrendous. She's like, "You're out of time." Bertie went, "Mum, please don't share that to anyone else." So those are the things. Have a look on the website, have a look at the socials, please share them, please have a look in relation to buying toys and things at Halloween. We're obviously going to revisit this around Christmas time because of toy safety at Christmas as well. Thank you for your time, Adrian, today. We really appreciate it.
Been an absolute pleasure, and I'm feeling trendier already. Thank you.
There goes all our credibility. It's just gone now. That's it. It's done.
That's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Like Louise says, there will be some information on the Consumer Friend website. We're doing one on general safety, one on toys, one on cosmetics, and one on electrics. Please follow us on social media. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe and give us a rating as well. That would be fantastic. Helps us get the information out there to the people that need it. So thank you very much. One last time, Louise.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much for having me.